Brian and Kihaad, how are y'all?
Good. How are you?
So we got to start by asking y'all the question that we ask everybody, and that is, how long have y'all been together, and how did y'all first meet?
We've been together
11 years. We met online on, what was that?
It was Meet Me at the time.
Yeah, it was like this little knockoff chat. Like, oh, I should say knockoff. Done.
At first, it was my yearbook, then it later became Meet Me. But we met from there when it was Meet Me at the time.
Mhm.
So what was it that attracted y'all to each other?
Kihaad has always been like, really smart. He still is very smart. He was valedictorian in high school. But he's also very humble. So he's not like full of himself. And that humility came off at the onset.
For me, he was just this gorgeous man that I wanted to meet. I wanted to get to know a bit better. So we decided to meet up in Orangeburg.
Was it Orangeburg?
I want to say it was Orangeburg. Met up in Orangeburg, we spent some time together, and the rest is history. Being honest, of course, it was sexual attraction for me, but at the same time, I wanted to build something more, because of course I've had hookups and things like that before, but after a while that becomes very draining.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like on the other end of it, when you're building a relationship, it's more empowering, if I may say. So the sexual attraction was there, but also I wanted to be there for him, take care of him, things like that. So in doing that, my love for him grew.
I think what happens in our community a lot is, and I'll admit we're guilty of this too, but a lot of us start at sex and then we go from there. But like he said, taking that extra step is empowering because it gives you a sense of, I guess, ownership. And it's not ownership over the other person, but ownership to say that you have something of value, you know. And I think especially in our culture, like in this capitalist society, everything that is valuable to us, we can kind of tie like money to, but you know, valuable relationships and those kinds of things, I don't think you can necessarily put a price tag on it, but it is very valuable. So you do feel a sense of like empowerment when you have a relationship, a strong relationship that you've built, that you forged in effort, you know. And that's a major thing, effort, trying, right? And that's we can laugh about that because I think we give it a good try every day, you know.
So you bring up something else that's very interesting and important, and you speak about value. How has this relationship added value into your lives, and what do you find valuable in the relationship?
For me, he sees my potential in being a whole lot better than what I am. And oftentimes he tells me that I am selling myself short. And I thoroughly believe him. It's, for me mentally, it's getting past the mental block of feeling like this is where I'm needed, or I feel like I probably can't do more. But every day I'm constantly battling myself, telling myself that I can do more because somebody else sees my potential. So that's one thing that I value with him, or value him for, because he always tells me that I'm a whole lot better than what I portray. So I definitely love him for that.
What are your cities again in South Carolina?
We're in Columbia, but I'm from
you're from
Charleston,
and Kihaad is from
Small town called North. Very small.
Say it one more time.
North, like North Carolina, just north.
Okay, now that's country.
See,
But the very country.
So when did y'all recognize that y'all were attracted to men? And what was it like navigating that journey in the South growing up?
Trying to navigate through that, I felt like nobody would understand if I was to say what I was feeling. Of course, growing up with the guys, they were like, well, this woman is so attractive. I like her breasts, I like her ass, whatever the case may be. But me, I was just like, she all right. But then, yeah, her hair is real nice or whatever. But all at the same time, it was like seeing men, I was just like, no, that's a gorgeous specimen right there.
Come on, specimen.
Yeah, I just felt entirely different. Like, at the time being a teenager, I really didn't know like what that feeling was until I got older and I realized that it was a sexual attraction. But I really didn't come out to like my family or whatever until I was like 18. I was going to college. But it was a bit lonely until I started to come out and be myself in that aspect. Once I did it, I've had a lot of positive feedback.
And when you say positive feedback, you mean coming out to your family and that sort of thing?
Yeah, nobody has just owned me at all. So my mom was a little shaky at first, but now we have a healthy relationship, so it's all good.
Okay, what was her biggest challenge and how did y'all work through that?
I'll have to say it was the religious factor. Growing up as Baptist Christians, we, of course, being that way is a sin. Being that way is a sin, but for me, I just always felt condemned because of the church that I went to and things like that. So that was her biggest thing when I came out. She was like, I would have to pray about it. But I had been doing that. So it's just like, you're not telling me something that I haven't already done. So this is how it is right now. So we can work through it and see where it goes. And we have a healthy relationship right now. So
how does she feel about Brian?
She loves him. I talked to her about my relationship a bit. And she's supportive of us. So yeah, she feels good about it.
And Brian, what was your experience growing up in South Carolina and recognizing and navigating your sexuality, then coming out to your family?
Bishop O.C. Allen is somebody who I admire a lot. And he uses this expression called inviting in versus coming out. And I take that position. I never really came out. I never really sat people down and was like, I got something to tell you. Right, let's talk.
There's something I need to
talk to. I'm good on that. Because the people that are closest to me, they know that I'm gay. They know Kihaad. They love Kihaad. But now, like with my family, I never told my mom, still to this day, or my dad, and they're both married. They're allowed. But I don't know. And the same thing like with religion. My parents are religious, and I'm religious too. I just don't have the same religious convictions as they do, or as many others. So because of that, I just never had that conversation. And I remember I had a friend who she would always say, "You need to tell your mom and dad you gay. You need to tell them you a faggot." You're right. She was extreme. We're not friends anymore. But not for that reason. But no, I don't know. I just like my sister. I've told my sister, and I guess she's the closest family member. And I got a couple cousins that I told, and I got gay uncles. So I'm sure they've told my parents, but I just never did. So yeah. So I guess that would be it.
So since you haven't formally told them, you think they may know?
I'm sure.
Okay, and how did you taking Kihaad around them, right?
I'm sorry?
You taking Kihaad around them?
Mm-hmm.
How did they respond to that relationship after seeing him for so many years?
The way Black parents in the South do, how's your friend? This is
No, this is the real question. So
okay.
when Kihaad goes with you over there for dinner, do you make his plate? That's the question.
So that's the real question. That's a very to the point question, a very pointed question.
Yeah.
So we actually don't do a whole lot of that. Very rarely do we go to each other's families' houses for holidays because we both live about an hour and some change from our families. So some holidays we don't go anywhere. Some holidays we go home to our respective families. And then there have been holidays and other family gatherings where we have gone with each other. But to answer your innate question or initial question, excuse me, we don't make each other's plates. And it's not because we have or have not come out. We just don't have that kind of relationship. But we also don't really, I think we don't really celebrate birthdays, all that. I mean, so we just kind of like our own little entity. You know?
Y'all some Jehovah's Witnesses over there or something?
It's given very Jehovah's Witness. It's given very anti-celebratory.
Do you think that it is inauthentic in any sort of way or limiting in any sort of way? Could you see yourself maybe expressing your relationship in a different way where it's more visible and acknowledged for exactly what it is?
To answer that, do I see myself expressing it? Yes. But I also have not sat down with a calendar and said, okay, on this date, I'm going to do this, and then on that date, I'm going to do that. I think you also said, what did you say? Inauthentic? Was that the word?
Yeah, do you think you're kind of hiding it a little bit from your families? Like, rather than just really stating the obvious, or are you avoiding it to kind of avoid something that may be uncomfortable?
It is definitely the latter for me. I wouldn't say I'm hiding it, but I'm definitely avoiding it. And it's only because it is uncomfortable. It is not, a typical conversation over dinner thing to me. And then I've also heard, my mom more so use very, I guess I would say, judgmental and hostile language. And because of that, that doesn't inspire me to really want to have those kinds of conversations with her. So that's my thing. And of course, obviously, it's very different here, but like for me, that language does not make me want to invite her into that part of my life. And I will say she has asked me many years ago, are you gay?
What makes you think?
And I will say now, I think about that often, how I would like to have that level of relationship with her, but I also don't want to.
What do you think would maybe give you the courage to do that?
I don't know.
And also, do you think it is always necessary for us to live so out loud, or do you think there are different guidelines for us depending on where we are? Like, for instance, y'all are in South Carolina, so do you think that affects your ability to really feel comfortable doing that?
I think our geolocation being in the South affects my mom's ability to be more open-minded, because she is still under the notion, like I would call it like the religious thing, about sin and that sort of thing. And I contended with that too, because again, being raised by her and my dad, I used to believe all of those things. And of course, because I don't anymore, and she still does, that's kind of what makes me say that's not something I think she is able to, I guess, accept. And because of that, I would just rather not.
Okay.
Well, answer another question that you asked about whether it's necessary. I don't think it's unnecessary, and I also think everybody is different. I think for some people, holding on to certain things in certain spaces can be too much for them. And it affects them and how they show up in the world and how they show up in their other relationships with people. That's not really the case for me. I'm fine. I'm happy and I'm healthy. So if I tell her and my dad, if I tell them one day, okay, if I don't, okay. Because I guess I have a community that is fortified enough where I do have outlets and I do have places for healthy conversation and I do have all of the things that are necessary, I think, are conducive to happiness and health. So there are that relationship with my parents and the fact that I don't have that level of openness, I don't think is taking away from my ability to function happily and healthily.
So you think sometimes by keeping certain elements of drama out of it, it allows you to be able to sustain what you two have and yourself as an individual?
Yeah, because like our relationship is great. We talk, we laugh. But again, that's just not something we. And again, in growing up, like we were talking about in the South, in a religious community, sex in general is taboo. You know, that's not talk about.
Right.
So, in addition to that, sexuality is kind of lumped into that same non-existent kind of category, or at least that has been my experience. Because of that, you know, we don't talk about it.
Just don't talk about it. Not a topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's not something we talk about.
But for me, growing up, my family, I've always been family oriented. I came out to them, and me and my dad's relationship really didn't change. And he was the main one that I was worried about. When I told him, he had the best reaction that he ever could have given me. He said, "I love you anyway. You know, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, you know, just let me know." And I love him forever for that. My mom, of course, is a little different. She told me to pray about it and prayed about it, and here we are. But what I haven't told my parents is that he and I are married. And that I feel like is a very difficult and uncomfortable conversation to have with them. Mainly because I don't know how they are going to react to the news. Normally for marriages, you know, we have like the big weddings and things like that. But for us, it wasn't the case.
Right.
So that's the main thing that I'm worried about telling them about is that us being married. Because a million and one questions are going to come up. I believe it's like, well, why wasn't I invited to the wedding? Girl, nobody was invited. So nothing against y'all. It was just, you know, just something that we decided to do.
But that's also like kind of how we live our lives too. Like we gotta like it's because we have a circle. Because it may come off like we're just secluded in our own worlds, and that's not necessarily the case. We have friends and all of that. That sounds so sad and helpless. We have friends. Okay.
We have friends. They're here.
Okay. But no, I mean, so we have a whole life, a very happy and healthy life. But I think for me, my happiness and my health and the health of our relationship, to me, are centered around us. So I don't need external validation and approval or not, and the other things that come with the not. So because I don't need that, and this is just for me, because Kihaad may feel different, but for me, I don't require those things. And because I don't, I'm good with that which I don't have because I don't need it.
Yeah, for me, the only thing that the biggest hump for me was my parents. And since I got them out of the way, all the rest is just secondary. I don't really worry about that. So once I got my parents out the way, everybody else, if I told them, that would be entirely up to my discretion. It's always fun to watch people try to figure me out because it's always so funny. It was like, when I tell them that I have a husband, they were like, "Are you gay?" I was like, "You didn't know that?"
Got a husband, but I'm not gay.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't do none of that. Not at all. It's always a funny reaction that I get. It's always funny.
Being in like South Carolina or Alabama or Mississippi, and navigating life as a Black gay man, one, and then also looking for community and looking for love and maintaining all of those things. So what advice would you share?
I would say, like, for community, this is the advice that my mom would give me and my brother and sister when we were growing up. My mom would always say, pick you one or two good friends, and that's it. You know?
That's all you need.
And I still live like that. I got like a handful of friends. That's my community. And of course I have Kihaad. So I don't need a whole lot in terms of community. So that would be my advice to somebody else. Create you a small, tight-knit circle of people that you know are riding for you. And about love, be discerning, because we live in an age where people are on the apps, you know, they're dating, they're e-dating or whatever you want to call it. And that can be very dangerous. We're all inundated with stories all the time about people that meet in that way and they're robbed or whatever, something unfortunate can happen. So be discerning. Hell, share your location. You know?
With your one or two good
Right,
friends.
yeah. Let folks know what you got going on. And again, and everybody, you know, doesn't have that luxury, because some people deal with, you know, certain personality elements that may not allow them to be as open or as honest, like anxiety or what have you. So I honestly, I don't really know what that's like. But if that is not your case, you know, you pick you one or two good friends, create you a small community. If you're going to do the apps, be very careful. You know, be discerning. Have somebody that's an accountability partner that's going to look out for you. Hell, go with you. Meet publicly. And you know, we don't do those things in our community a lot of times. It's a lot of like,
It's a lot of hooking up.
yeah, but be careful. Because I mean, I count myself lucky. Because a lot of people look for a partner or look for love or even just community, like I said, friends, and they don't have it and they struggle with that. So, and like you said, layered on all of that is the fact that we live in the South. And as progressive as people want to think they are, even down here in the South, I find more often than not, that's not the case. People can be regressive, just downright ignorant. And you know, I don't consider it to be a fault of mine. You know, that's to their own detriment. So if you run into people like that, know that that has nothing to do with you. That's not telling of your character or your nature. That is a demerit of theirs, you know. And it's up to you to remember or know that and move from that space. Know that that person's fallacy or that person's shortcoming or their inability to be forward thinking or progressive or what have you is not a reflection on you, you know, and it doesn't speak to how you may be leaving something to be desired as a person. That's their loss.
Kihaad.
Best advice that I could give. If you don't learn to love yourself, because once you learn to love yourself, that self-love will pour into others who also love you. And another thing, and something that I preach to myself, is communication. Communicate what you want, communicate what you don't want, because in the long run, it's only gonna help you navigate through life to figure out what you really want. And try not to lose yourself in doing things for other people, you know, just be self-aware, self-conscious of what you're doing.
So we always end our conversations with a Joseph Beam quote, which is, Black men loving Black men is the revolutionary act. And so Brian and Kihaad, in your opinions, through your lived experiences and what you've experienced and built together in your relationship, why is Black men loving Black men so revolutionary?
It goes against the grain. It goes against the narratives that are fed to us. It goes against what we've been taught and told to think about ourselves. Like one of the I guess cultural terms right now is toxic masculinity.
Mhm.
And I think the revolutionary act of Black men loving Black men, even if it's not in the same gender sense, because my closest male relationships are straight men, and they know that I'm gay. But it's revolutionary because it's for the good of the community. We need community, we need love, we need all of those things that toxic masculinity will have us believe we may not need. We need it. We need to care and to be cared for. So that's the revolution, to know that we need that and to seek to receive that and give that liberty.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, Black men is kind of, they have been kind of like, it becomes lonely. I know I say that a lot, but it really does, because you feel like you don't have anybody that you can really confide in. Even as a straight man, they find it really hard to be open and vocal because of what society says. So with us, Black men loving Black men, we're showing that we can be vocal and we can be better, not just for ourselves but for the community.